Now, I wish to give the floor to the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Cherno Majuba. Who has just received some very pleasant news that he has agreed to share with me after he's made his contribution. I can read your lips. I can read your lips. Go on, don't say any reply. Don't make any reply.
What is this all about?
I can read your lips. Go ahead.
You know the news is coming from him to the two of us. Remember what happened there? Now I understand. Now I understand. What's happening to service? I want to see myself. See, I have commanded the TV and it's all. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Considering the contributions made throughout the 5 days, I believe I will be very, very, very brief and short.
Wonderful.
If I take 2 minutes, I will have gone too far. But I'll be very brief. It depends on the watch you will be using, Mr. Speaker.
Well, it will be a Cherno watch.
Well, let me borrow the Kagbo watch, please. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Even though I'm sure yourself and the leader will do, but I also want to join the chorus in congratulating members of Parliament, those who were fortunate to contribute and those who were not fortunate to contribute. Because after me, I'm sure it's only going to be one more. But they have all said their bits, they've all done justice. But I'm expecting to see certain members in the House because, you know, when we wrap up, we'll be passing through and making some responses as and when necessary. And it is good to respond when the actual MPs themselves are around. But it seems as if people enjoy talking, and after they're done, they take the exit. So if I do, please don't blame me, Mr. Speaker.
Which is very unparliamentary.
Don't blame me. Mr. Speaker, like one of our colleagues tried to do in anchoring his debate on a particular premise, I will anchor mine on paragraph 3 of the President's speech, which, with your permission, I will read. And I'll start with the second sentence. I want to show just how far we've come and how resilient we have been to show my government's continued commitment to political stability, underline, economic prosperity, underline, in spite of the times we are living in. I will not talk about that. IB Kagbo has addressed it extensively, but I might mention it in passing. To show our investment in education, our future generations, building robust healthcare systems. I underline the word robust. Prioritizing food security. Prioritizing, Mr. Speaker. Empowering women. That again, I will not say much on. I will just be passing through because you know, remember from Tonkore, he did justice this morning. Protecting and promoting rights. And I'm happy he used the word and access to justice. I'm sure it's deliberate. Nobody is questioning access to justice. But do we have justice? That is what we'll be debating, Mr. Speaker. Addressing poverty and unemployment, governing justly and accountably, protecting our environment, mitigating public safety risks. Mr. Speaker, again, protecting our environment. This is going to be the thrust of my own contribution to the debate. Because we're here to debate, Mr. Speaker, but one thing I noticed throughout the 5 days is that colleagues on the other side have spent all of their time in debating statement of a president who is now former, rather than debating the very address that was delivered in his house. That is what I noticed. We have been asked by the motion to thank His Excellency the President, and in the process debate his address, not to thank or debate the address of a former president. But we spent 5 days just doing that. Mr. Speaker, we are not here to critique negatively. As members of the opposition, we are part of governance. So that is what we have been doing, and that's what we will continue to do. And we expect, after 4 years, our colleagues should have learned and taken the cue in accepting positive criticisms. But they take offense on anything. Nobody has criticized the free education on this side. Nobody. Nobody has criticized the free education. But they have proffered suggestions in enhancing the free education for it to be made quality. That is all they've done. But whenever they talk about free education, whether you say the teachers are not being paid, or their salaries are low, or the kids are not getting their ration on time, people feel offended. But these are facts. These are statements of fact. So I wonder why colleagues are taking offense when all what we are doing is helping them in ensuring that government succeeds in making sure that the free education, one, it works, but secondly, that it goes with quality. That is all we're doing. We are partners in development. We are not here to disrupt. We are not here to obstruct. Through an undertone, I will mention this in passing, a colleague on that side talked about Lebanon. I hope what we had at the President Lodge, that somebody was shot and died a few days ago, is not true. I hope it is not true. Because I don't have anything in front of me, but the rumors are all over. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as I said, we will continue to support education. We believe that human development is a sine qua non for the development of Sierra Leone, like any other developed country. We will continue to support it. But wherever we see gaps, we'll bring them out so that collectively we'll work together in filling those blank spaces. Mr. Speaker, the economy, I'm not an economic expert. So I will not spend too much time on it. But let me refer this House, Mr. Speaker, to the first budget that was presented by the former Minister of Finance on the 13th of July 2018. I will refer this House to two specific paragraphs. Paragraph 15 and 18, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'll read maybe part of 15. Inflation, these are not my words, eh? These are coming from the speech. Thank you very much, sir. That inflation has been declining from the peak of 20.2% in March 2017 to 15.3% in December 2017, and further down to 14.4% in March 2018. This is what a responsible government does. Bringing down inflation. A colleague of ours from Kenema, let me don't misquote him, said, we declared agenda for prosperity, left with austerity, and then to bankruptcy. He's absolutely right. We left with austerity because we were a prudent government. But when the SLPP came into governance in 2018, they changed the word austerity to fiscal discipline. That was why when we debated this budget, if you go to the Hansard, I asked the then Minister of Finance to distinguish between the two. But he did not during his response. Because he knew very well then that they were just playing with words. And today, we are facing bankruptcy. So he's absolutely right, Mr. Speaker. These are not my words, eh? Mr. Speaker, I'll then go to paragraph 18. Because people in the streets are making statements that they're hearing from colleagues in this house. Some of them. SO2 will not meet nothing. These again are the words of the Minister of Finance. As a member of the ECOWAS Parliament, one of the things we do is to report to the plenary at every ordinary session we do have. And there are benchmarks. Mr. Speaker, you left those benchmarks there. Primary and secondary convergence criteria. You left them there. We left nothing, but paragraph 18 is saying the reverse. Jacob Jusuf Safar, former Minister of Finance. Gross foreign exchange reserves of the Bank of Sierra Leone amounted to US dollar 507.79 million. About 3 months of import cover. This has always been met. Always. But you met nothing. Mr. Speaker, you see, I am not an economic expert, so I will not venture into those areas where the geologists will want to venture into. I will not. I am not an economic expert. But one thing I know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, is that as a responsible government, as a result of the Ebola, when this economy contracted by a negative of 21%, we were able to run this economy with prudence and to ensure that salaries were paid on time. Even though kids were not going to school, teachers were paid on time. So that is why I want us to focus on debating the present after 4 years and not going to the past. The SLPP government was elected to deliver and not to live as crying babies after 4 years. They're still crying. APC did this, APC did that. As recent as in April of this year, they are still crying that we are suffering because of what the APC did. How can you do that? You are elected to deliver and not to cry. Mr. Speaker, I will not want to waste too much time on the economy. But if we go by what the honorable member from Kono, where is he? Where is your leader? Okay, he's hearing me. I don't want to quote people and then Mr. Speaker, when he was talking about the mining industry, okay, listen, please record me. I'm your uncle, record. When he was talking about the mining industry, he gave us increase in volumes. But is that increase translated to the economy? When we had less mining companies, the economy was buoyant. Now we have more mining companies, but the economy is dying. So what is the benefit? What is the benefit? Now we are doing more mining. It's a pity my sister is not here from Bonn. She's always been crying because the rivers have been polluted. The loss we are making on the environment, is it commensurate to the monies we are making in mining? We have to ask ourselves these questions. If the environment is being damaged and destroyed, and the money we are making is not good enough to take care of ourselves and protect the environment, then we must have a rethink. We must. The environment doesn't need us. We need the environment. And if we need the environment, we must ensure that it subsists and exists. The willow. I was driving on Saturday, Mr. Speaker, towards grafting. Mr. Speaker, our forest in the peninsula is rapidly being depleted. And it's very serious, Mr. Speaker. You can feel the wind. This is May. Roofs are flying all over the place. Whether it's in Kaine, even in Binti, roofs are flying. We must do something to protect the environment, Mr. Speaker. We must do something. Mr. Speaker, please don't send me a message now. I'll look at the message later. Mr. Speaker, I'll look at the message later, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Leader, please tell the Speaker I will look at his message later. But he's sending me a message, and that will distract me. I don't know. I just had my phone. Mr. Speaker.
Let me assure you.
Mr. Speaker.
Don't get distracted, because there is no message from me to read.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, I will take you to page 2 of the President's speech. Paragraph 7. The President is very, very smart, very, very brilliant, very, very intelligent. Line 3.
What page?
Page 2, paragraph 7.
Oh.
When he was talking about the census, he used the word credible before data. The President is expecting the credible data. He's very intelligent, very smart. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the way the census started, it ended worse than the way it started. The data is far from credible. Yes, far from credible, Mr. Speaker. And I will tell you why. I will tell you legally why the census is not legitimate, and I will tell you why the data is not credible. I will tell you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm all ears.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, like the honorable member from Bombali alluded this morning, when he was talking about statistics Sierra Leone, he said statistics has not been doing justice to this government. I share that perception, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we all know what transpired on the 19th of April last year at the Bintumani. So I will not go into history. But all I want to tell this House, and by extension the public, is that all what Statistics Sierra Leone had done before the 19th of April, 21 days after the 19th of April, Mr. Speaker, are we together?
Absolutely.
This is very important, Mr. Speaker.
I'm multitasking.
Mr. Speaker, all what Statistics Sierra Leone did by way of the census before the 19th of April last year was never annulled. Whether it was cartography, whether it was mapping, that was before the 19th of April. And 21 days after the 19th of April, which, quote unquote, some are claiming made the instrument legitimate, they just blended the negative and the positive. And you know what the answer is? Negative plus positive. It's negative. So it is illegal, Mr. Speaker. Simple mathematics. Simple mathematics. If you do something illegally and you are called to attention, you attempt to regularize it, and when you do, you still take backward those illegal things and bring them forward, then you are making everything dirty, Mr. Speaker. That is one. Mr. Speaker, I also tell you with authority that the census, the midterm census, was meant for population and housing. and it was dubbed the People's Census. Mr. Speaker, Statistics Sierra Leone and others who are supporting them claimed that as a result of what transpired within that period, people did not participate. So if it's People's Census and they refuse to participate, how can it be a census? How can it be a census? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the census cannot be neither a people's census nor a credible census. And the president has called this house to support a data that is credible. So, and since the census data is not credible, this house should not entertain the census data. Mr. Leader, that's why this is why I'm making me this point. Mr. Speaker, if the census was for housing and population, I need speakers attention. Now, over 80% of MPs. Mr. Speaker, it is evidently clear that when you do housing and population census, whichever premise you visit, you must leave a mark. It is straight law. You must leave a mark. Go around the city of Freetown, identify where the marks are. Nowhere. Nowhere. Mr. Speaker, I will tell you, at least 8 out of every 10 in the West End area you talk to, they will tell you SO2, nobody not going to use. And this is not just for locals, eh? Even MPs on that side, you have to be careful because your people are watching. They are listening. Yes. They know that they were not counted. And even those who were recruited, some of them still have their palm tops with them. So how do they calculate the figures when the palm tops are not with statistics? They are yet to pay people. The numerators still have their palm tops. So where did you get the data from? Oh, from space. Mr. Speaker, this is serious. Since the president in this paragraph is expecting credible data to help him develop Sierra Leone, this last census data, not being credible, should not be tolerated by this House to be used. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I hope that these 36 pages will be reduced next year. They are not doing justice to the president. You can't give the president a speech as long as this to read for a presidential address. You don't do that. It's unfair. It's not fair to the president. And the speech writers, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you have been fortunate to read it, because as Speaker, I know you are not interested in reading these documents. But I don't know whether you found time to read it. Because you are the Speaker, you don't want to interfere. You must have read it just for the debate, but not to participate. But we read it religiously.
I'm Israeli.
Okay, so you read it religiously. So I'm happy with that. So in how many parts of this speech you saw the words, my government, my government, my government? In this speech?
You tell me.
Countless times, Mr. Speaker. There are some paragraphs, in one paragraph, you will see 3 or 4 times. My government, my government. So the speechwriters are not doing justice. The speechwriters are not doing justice to the president. Mr. Speaker, we have to make sure that the president is comfortable. So the speechwriters should not be doing this to the president.
If you were a speechwriter of the president.
You know what I will do, Mr. Speaker.
No, what would be the alternative terminology?
You know them. There are many, Mr. Speaker. My government, 3 times in a, you know, I will have many. Brevity, you know, is the soul of what? You know what I will do? That is why I will just contribute today for 2 minutes, and then I sit down.
2 minutes?
Yes. I am only extending my contribution,
By what clock?
No, Mr. Speaker, you know, as I said to you, I am going to be long because the speech is too long. But it's not my desire. It's not my desire, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they tell us when you go through this speech, there's a lot of data. But we don't know how credible the data is. So I said to the bank governor the day when they read the speech, I said, Mr. Governor, we'll have to bring you to this house at a point in time to talk to us, the bank governor. Because not just him, I will take you to some other places. But we are challenging some of the information in this speech. I will not blame the president because he's not everywhere. That's why he have heads of MDAs. So those heads of MDAs will have to come to this house and provide us with the tangibles. Not just to say, I have done this, I will do that. But when we go on ground, the things are not there. The things are not there, Mr. Speaker. I am in the Western area, for instance. Energy. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, we've been told about increased electricity generation. Well, for us in the Western area, we are yet to benefit from that increased generation. Let me finish. Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the Energy Committee has been very useful to me the last couple of days because of the pains I'm going through as a result of power outages and voltage problems. But he has been very useful. I never used to suffer that before 2018. But now I'm suffering it. So I am saying, Mr. Speaker, if increased generation means more blackout, then let us go back to the status quo. That is what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, sir, Mr. Speaker. I've not made a statement for you to respond.
But you're looking at me.
I have to address the House through you. I have to address the House through you.
I know.
Mr. Leader.
But you know.
I have to address the House through you, Mr.
I
Speaker.
agree. But
more generation, more blackout.
I know. I just wonder whether your address is the same now as it was in 2018.
Yes.
Same?
Same, Mr.
Sure?
Speaker. Same. Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you for the Western area, the 10 megawatts we left at King Tom, the 15 in the east, and the ship which you criticized during the campaign, not you, Mr. Speaker, I'm talking about the SLPP, the ship, and now the 6 megawatt solar park, which is yet to come on stream, Mr. Speaker, and I was present when the groundbreaking was on. I was there. Oh, he knows. I was there on ground. I participated in the groundbreaking, which is yet to come on stream. From Irina, the guys from Dubai, I was there. Mr. Speaker, nothing more has been added to our generation in the Western area. Yeah, tell me. If I'm not saying the truth, let him tell me. If I'm not saying the truth, it's a fact, Mr. Speaker. That is why we are still keeping the ship, because we still need the ship. The ship, you criticize the toll road. The toll road is still there, and you mentioned the toll road in this speech. The toll road you criticized, it's mentioned here. So the same sheep they criticize, elephant head. We don't criticize for. We prefer solutions. It's the Secretary General, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is not. They are watching my performance to know whether I should be retained or not, Mr. Speaker.
I think they can comfortably observe from their allotted seats.
No, Mr. Speaker, they are not.
They don't have to be cheerleaders behind you.
No, Mr. Speaker, he wants to be sure that I'm doing my job.
The Secretary General happens to be a cheerleader right behind you, but that's not his allotted seat.
Mr. Speaker, there is strategic politicking. Just read the political leader in Parliament and his supposedly executive put in place. The 11-man committee.
Mr. Leader, that was not meant for the camera. Mr. Speaker, so whilst we applaud the effort being made by government to improve the energy sector, it is good that they make good and keep standard to what was existing before you expand. Otherwise, when you go, you have to come back. Progress has to be incremental. Otherwise, if you leave class 1 and then you go to form 5, that gap, it will kill you, Mr. Speaker.
Some people earn double promotion.
That's it, double promotion, not fee-pool or C-spool. But that is what you see, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the several excuses and, oh, this is the problem, this is what we met, that's what, that should be of the past. Mr. Speaker, next year, on the 24th of June, 2023, the president will be exiting because we will be coming into governance. So let him tell us now his next statement in this house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, his next statement in this house will be to close the house, and we will not have the time to debate it here. We will be debating it along the streets because we will be campaigning vigorously to retake the State House. People are suffering, Mr. Speaker. People are suffering. Oh yes. You know the APC. You remember in 2007. You remember in 2007. So just don't worry. We are using the same tactics to come back in 2023. I will tell you, the people have resolved that they're going to vote in the APC in 2023. Mr. Speaker, like I said, Mr. Speaker, the people are saying they prefer the way we sank the country in 2018 than the way they have now gone. They have gone deeper into the hole. The hole is way, way deeper. That, as I said, we are now in a bankrupt economy, Mr. Speaker. We are managing bankruptcy. We hope we will not go beyond where we are. Otherwise, because the holes are so many and deep, that filling them when we come back is going to be a Herculean task. But we have the capacity, the temperament, so and we are prepared to fill in those holes. Mr. Speaker, the budget we've had in this House on a number of occasions telling us about 22% for education, 10% or 11% for the health sector. Beautiful on paper, Mr. Speaker. The people want to feel it. When you talk about the health sector, when I go to the hospital, I want to feel the impact. Mr. Speaker, I was here a day last week, but except I go through my phone, I don't remember the day. Whilst a colleague of ours was talking about the infant and maternal mortality rate, a relative of mine was dying from stillbirth at the Kinhaman Road Hospital, the same time. So what I'm saying is, we still have room to make progress. So that is it. So when we critique, We are not criticizing because efforts are not being made, but we are saying we can do more and the opportunity is there to do more. That is why we critique. People should not take offense. As the leader said, even in America it happens. But when we mention it, people start saying, no, this is not true, this is not happening. But these things happen. These are facts. When they say 22% towards education, but when I listened to the chairman of the Energy Committee this morning, when he was giving his analysis, the figures he mentioned are above 22% of the budget. The figures. No, it's fact, and he is correct. I saw those same figures on the site. You are correct. He did not add. But the fact is, the figures are more than 22% of our budget. Vandy, I checked those same figures. You did not check it with the eye I used. You used your own eye. I am speaking on behalf of government, Mr. Speaker, because the honorable member from Kono spoke for the opposition. So all I'm saying is coming from the government, leader of government business. I'm speaking for them, Mr. Speaker. No, the opposition, the leader from Kono, the C4C leader, they said he spoke on behalf of the opposition. So all I'm doing now is speaking on behalf of government. That's what I'm doing. Are we together, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, on paper, everything is good. But when you go outside, things are different, Mr. Speaker. When you go to the market, they will tell you that the cost of a bag of rice is over 500,000 leons. It is practical, it is physical. The one you eat. No, the one you eat. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my friend and brother from Kenema, he's not here. He was telling us about the cup of rice in his constituency. So I was asking whether it is Tonkia he's referring to. But he's not here because, Mr. Speaker, I know he doesn't buy rice by cup. My friend from Tonkia, he's not here now. He doesn't buy rice by cup. And if the cost of rice per cup is 2,000 euros in Tonkia, I've sent to the people of Tonkia. They've heard, so they're looking forward to the rice. They're waiting for the rice in Tonkia. Mr. Speaker, the free health care, which was started during the previous administration, has been continued. But it is sad when you hear people say, sir, that's what I want to do. I want to talk about the present. That's what I want to do. I said the free health care, which was started by the previous administration, is continuing. But a colleague of ours on that side said, Ebola, we were not prepared. That Corona, this government has been so prudent that our preparedness manifested itself. Failing to acknowledge the fact that had we not prepared ourselves well for Ebola, we would have been caught by surprise for COVID. The contact tracers used for COVID were trained during Ebola. The ambulances used for COVID were bought during Ebola. So had we not prepared well, where would we have started for COVID? These are basic facts, Mr. Speaker. Where are the ambulances we bought? Are they not the ones being used now? Some of them are in Bo in somebody's constituency. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, whilst we work on education, which we all support, the health of our people should not be underestimated. So let us continue in developing the health sector. And in developing the health sector, we must feed our people. So I go back to the paragraph I referred. The president said prioritizing food security. Please let us support the president in prioritizing food security. What has happened during the last 4 years, food security has never been prioritized. Never. Agriculture sank from where we left it. And it should be going upwards, not downwards. Nothing is happening. The support that farmers were getting by way of fertilizers, seedlings, and the like. Now, even when you want to buy fertilizer from the private sector, you will not find it. You want to purchase. So we are sinking. We cannot feed our people if we don't farm. Yes, what do you want to say? Yes, I've cross-checked. He confirms that what I'm saying is true. He says it's true. Mr. Speaker, we could achieve a lot if we farm. But if we don't, even in the most developed countries, Mr. Speaker, they subsidize their farmers. Why can't we subsidize our farmers? We want to use the private sector approach, which is good. We want to use the private sector approach. But Mr. Speaker, when we do that, we should also consider those who cannot afford the small-scale farmers. They are more than the mechanized farmers we have. We must protect them. When I go to Bokakajama and Bolambayama, and I visit the backyard of a strong woman farmer, I want to make sure that that particular farmer is being supported by government to succeed. But that is not happening, Mr. Speaker. They talked about privatizing the tractorization business. I don't know how far that has gone because they are not visible. I don't know whether you have one in your farm, Mr. Speaker. You do? You don't. It's not working, Mr. Speaker. So we must change strategies. So for this 1 year, no, you don't get. For this 1 year, whilst you have your last bite during this session, please leave a good imprint so that the people will remember you, not for the negatives that are highlighted outside, the killings at Pademba Road or in Makeni. They should remember you for the good things you leave behind. Mr. Speaker, I will not go to the 500 billion. As I said, Mr. Leader, maybe through you, I discussed it with the bank governor. There was a day in this house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, are we together? You know the bank governor is your friend. That is why I'm mentioning it to you, Mr. Speaker. He's Bashir, your uncle I'm talking about. Professor Kalon, your uncle. Mr. Speaker, since he came, our economy has just been sinking. Since he came to this country, our economy has not done well. You know, practical economy is different from textbook economics. Mr. Speaker, do I refer you to the paragraph? The favor I want to ask the leader for, Mr. Leader, I mentioned once in this house, sometime last year, that we should the governor should tell us on how they use this money. It's important. The 500 billion, Mr. Speaker, because it was this house that the minister gave and we gave him the approval. So if they had expended the 500 billion, somebody's playing with my mic. I don't know. Please don't use that Koribondo magic here, please. Mr. Speaker, it is important for us also to know how the 500 billion was expended. So, Mr. Leader, through you, I hope that we'll get the governor, maybe through the Minister of Finance, since we might, but he can beat us in room 1 because he was in charge of the fund. But we need to know. I hope we are together, Mr. Leader. It's very, very important. As I said, there are other areas in the speech which we'll be discussing within the business committee so that we will get specific MDAs to come and tell us whether what they sent to the president is consistent with what is on the ground. SO2, Emerson he always tell me, say, that long speech where they make her feel for sleep. That's what the musician will say. And we don't want to be sleeping. That day when the president was making his submission, a lot of people were sleeping here, including ministers. A lot of them. Somebody seated very close to me. I had to wake him up. Very, no. I had to wake him up. Very close to me, the person. Mr. Speaker, the president talked on human rights. Mr. Speaker, I don't know the human rights. I'm not beginning it. Are you uncle? You are lying, pa? Yes, Mr. Speaker. I said the president talked of human rights. And in human rights, call them, though they will come, just call them. Mr. Speaker, Speaker, you obstruct me.
That is what you call Falamakata. You are Falamakata in us. Why should you Falamakata in us?
Tawa. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the president also talked on human rights. And when we talk of human rights, food security is a human right. Housing is a human right. Health system is a human right. But outside of those three also, Mr. Speaker, the general human rights people talk about all the time. The police we have today is not helping the president achieve the human rights he desires. The attitude of the police is contrary to all the tenets human rights requires. The way they manage the police today, the way they effect their arrest, is totally against human rights. Mr. Speaker, somebody who made this sign was arrested. This sign. And we are told that that person is mental. When you arrest mental people, you take them to the mental home. You don't take them to cell. You take them to the mental home. Few days later, without Part 4 of the Public Order Act, which has been amended by repealing and replacing it, the Cyber Act, cybercrime law was used, even though the charges are still to be verified, to arrest a former minister during the past administration. I'm not going to question the law because it is sub judice. But I will talk about the human rights, Mr. Speaker. Our bail conditions are clear on how you deal with people who are physically challenged. What transpired in court was contrary to what the bail condition says. I will stop at that, because I don't want to go into the merits. But I'm just saying, Mr. Speaker, we're not doing too well with human rights. Not just this session, Mr. Speaker, going way back from the incidents in McKinney. This House paneled a team. We're still waiting for the report from that team, Mr. Speaker. We're still waiting. We don't want to talk about what happened in Tombo or what happened in other places that culminated to what happened in Paremba Road. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, are we together? Do you want to take a break? Thank you. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot we have to do as far as human rights is concerned. The police are not helping. There is access to justice because courts are everywhere. But we still are asking the question, do we have justice? That is the question we are asking. And the people will answer that question as to whether we have justice, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member from Constituency 132 attempted to be a lawyer this morning. I don't know whether it was deliberate or because, according to him, he is a caucus leader for the SLPP members of parliament in the Western area. He tried, but unfortunately, he went out of his field. This constitution is not politics, this is law. So as lawmakers, we should also read and understand it. He attempted to talk to the public, and he referred us to Section 78 of the Constitution. And I also refer him to what he said, because in his submission, he contradicted himself. Mr. Speaker, you know, I'm getting old, my eyes. Mr. Speaker, the Section 78 he referred us to makes it mandatory. It makes it mandatory for the court to try petition matters within 4 months. And further down, if there is an appeal, of further 4 months. I know when the matter started, and he knows when it started. Because a matter starts the day it is sat upon. The day the injunctions were granted, that was the start of the matter. But let me go back to what he says, that the matter started in November. Decisions were handed down on the 31st of May, the following year. So count, please. Let him count. Is it within 4 months? November to the 31st of May the following year. He tried, Mr. Speaker, but what is bad is bad. The SLPP cannot make good what they've done. They cannot make good what they've done. It is bad, it is bad. But they even did not stop there. After doing what they did contrary to the Constitution, without going again through the Public Elections Act, even though NEC, that was a party to the action, because one of the MPs talked about violence and this, NEC was a party, and they filed affidavits confirming that our position was right, and they supported the position. So NEC did not support the plaintiffs in the action. Their lawyers were with the defendants, the respondents. They did not. So NEC did not support all the claims that were made by the people who took our colleagues to court. But what I want to land on is, most importantly, the matter was not dealt with within 4 months. That is the point I want to make. So it's unconstitutional. You want to say something? I see you are itching.
Tomorrow is the anniversary.
If you want to say something, say it, Mr. Speaker.
Don't see remove.
Because you are itching. They were removed on the 31st of May. I will not forget that day. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because I suffered. I was shot with a rubber bullet on my foot. Tear gas was fired right in front of myself and Honorable Usman Timbo. I will come to that. I will come to that. Don't worry. I will talk about constitutional. I've not said anything and you say net the calm SO2. Mr. Speaker, these are all things against human rights, Mr. Speaker. So I will not, I will just stop there for now on this, because these are things we've talked about on a number of occasions, that our colleagues were illegally removed, contrary to the Constitution. People keep talking about, they have been talking about Sam Sumana in opposition, and in government they are still talking about Sam Sumana. In opposition they were. So by next year you come back to opposition and continue talking about Sam Sumana. Sam Sumana, the SLPP has nothing we did contrary to the Constitution. All they refer to all the time is Sam Sumana. But the SLPP has abused this Constitution more than any other government. More than any other government. Any other. But all the time they talk, oh, Sam Sumana, Sam Sumana. We are happy one scenario. Sam Sumana's matter went to the Supreme Court. But our MPs were deprived of appealing before others were brought to this house. But Sam Sumana's matter went to the Supreme Court. And the highest court of the land. The highest court of the land. Mr. Speaker, my colleague from Kono is still not here, but his lieutenant is here. His lieutenant is here. No, his lieutenant is here. He's recording. I told him I was going to refer to him, but he ran away. But he left his lieutenant. Mr. Speaker, I will quote him, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to. No, his lieutenant, So, he says, as leaders, we have to be genuine and cooperative. Those are his words. He mentioned it when he talked about walkout and referred to the Peace Commission bill. I agree with him, Mr. Speaker. That is why I was shocked when he talked about the removal of Sam Sumana, but did not talk about the way this government is treating Alhaji Sam Sumana. He did not talk about it. Mr. Speaker, the man has been deprived of his entitlements. We did not. We never stripped him of his security. We did not strip him of any of his benefits as a former vice president. But the SLPP, why are you worried? I've not mentioned any dry bone. Why are you worried? Okay, we did not. Okay, we did not. But what have you done in 4 years? We did not do anything. What have you done in 4 years? The man has no security. His benefits are not been paid. His pension is not been paid. Even the securities he had. Even the securities he had. When you came into government, you removed the securities from him. And you met him with those securities. Don't be worried. Don't be worried. But I remember. Hassan. Mr. Speaker, all I am saying is, if what happened in the past was wrong, Hassan left this one. If what happened in the past was wrong, according to the SLPP, if what happened in the past was wrong according to the SLPP, not according to the Supreme Court, but according to the SLPP, Why, when you came into governance in 2018, instead of ensuring that the former Vice President, Alhaji Samsumana, secured what he's entitled to, you went further to deprive him of even what he was having before you came? Why did you? It was the SLPP that took his security from him. The SLPP did.
Are the benefits for a retired person or a former?
Mr. Speaker, that is for the Supreme Court to say. That is for the Supreme Court to say. The bottom line is, Mr. Speaker, you know I don't want to talk about that because we had that debate in a private room, so that is why I have not mentioned it here. I have to be as professional as I could. You remember we discussed it in a private room?
And you remember my question?
Yes, and there was no conclusion. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to talk about it in the chamber because I have to be professional not to do that. But the bottom line is, you want to help Alhaji Samsumana. First, restore him to where he was before you came into governance, and then you give him what he's entitled to. But you are treating him as a stranger. But he's a Sierra Leonean. Mr. Leader, that undertone was too heavy for me. I almost resumed my seat. Mr. Speaker, I will not want to talk much on the MCC because all of us are praying for us to get the MCC. No, we are praying. Anybody who is not praying for us to get the MCC is not a patriot. We will not do that as a party. I am speaking as a leader. As a party, we will not support that. Yes, Mr. Secretary General. We will not support that. But Mr. Speaker, for the records, because you see, we don't have to be on the surface or be shallow. This is not the first time we are achieving the compact as a country. In 2012, we did. Yes. Go back to the records. We achieved the compact in 2012, and in 2013, we retrogressed again, the compact. That was what led us to the threshold. It is the threshold that has again led us to this compact we have. We achieved the threshold. That was when the $49 million was bought. These are facts. It is not for, it is for the public, because we have to give full and frank disclosure, Mr. Speaker. Information must be complete. You see, I have not said much on energy because the chairman is my brother. But I will go back to energy. I've jumped energy. I don't want to go back. Don't bring me back to energy. The chairman is my friend. Mr. Speaker, as I said, the MCC, I'll just mention that in passing. But all of us, as a parliament, as a government, as a people, we should do the things that will enable us achieve the compact. It's not just talking about it. If human rights is a challenge, let us ensure we continue passing the human rights. If corruption is a challenge, let us continue passing corruption. If governance, because the bottom line is you lose one or two, you lose the compact again. We don't want to go back. We want to move forward because we don't want to lose it. But people don't want the advice. The pieces of advice we give are for our all benefit. Mr. Speaker, the president talked on corruption. I was shocked. For the first time in the history of this house. Well, this republic, maybe not during your day, because that was the one-party state. Corruption. You want me to refer you to the page? Because I don't need to quote him there. But except I don't want to waste your time. So what's the number? Before Foreign Affairs. Okay, the fight against corruption. It starts on page 33. Yes, it starts on page 33 and ends on 34. Mr. Speaker, why are we celebrating paragraph 148? From 117 in 2020 to 115 out of 180 countries surveyed. We were not told how many were surveyed before, but in 2020 we are told that 180 were surveyed. These are the facts, these are the information I'm talking about. The gaps. When it was 117, how many countries were surveyed? In 2020, we are told that 115 out of 180 countries. Information has to be complete. But this is not what is worrying, Mr. Speaker. What is worrying is that this is perhaps the first time we've read a presidential address under the fight against corruption and nothing is mentioned on the audit service Sierra Leone. Nothing, absolutely. This is perhaps the first time. Because when you talk on corruption, the audit service is a key pillar in the fight against corruption. This is the first time. I wonder why. Again, the speech writers. Not the president, because the president does not prepare his speech. The president doesn't have that time. He's busy with other state matters. Mr. Speaker, I am highlighting these gaps. I am highlighting these gaps. Mr. Speaker, I am highlighting these gaps because it will be good for him to include them in his farewell speech. His final speech to this House, his farewell speech when he will be closing the House. It's important. The audit service is a baby we developed. In 2007 when we came, the audit service was not just moribund, but they had arrears of audit reports for over 4 years. Over. We had to bring them to speed, amend the act and give the audit service the teeth it enjoys today. Because it is part of accountability. We believe in transparency and accountability. That is why we never sacked the Auditor General. With all what she said, with all what she said, with all the points she raised, we took them in good faith and continued continued working. We never, the Auditor General has been suspended. The case for the rice that went to the ACC. Mr. Speaker, the case for the rice that went to the ACC took approximately 6 months, and that was in the court to come to an end. This is a tribunal. It is yet to take off. That is very sensitive. The office of the Auditor General is a very sensitive office. The more they expedite it, the better for us as a nation. She was commended, praised everywhere, applauded by the SLPP in opposition. Today, now I will not talk about the issue. I will not talk about the issue. I'm not talking about the issue. I'm talking about the process, not the issue. I will not go into the merits because it's sub judice. I will not venture into that. I will not say whether she's guilty or not. I've not said that, and I will not say it. What I'm saying, because the office is sensitive, that tribunal should expedite its work, and they should have concluded what they're doing. Justice delayed, as the president said. It is not me, it's the president that said so. Where is it, page? Justice delayed is the judiciary. The judiciary, yes. I know you told me you read this speech like 10 times. Mr. Speaker, the president said, under justice reforms, paragraph 131, a prosperous nation cannot exist without the freedom of its citizens. Are we free, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, are we free with what the police are doing? A colleague of ours has been in McKinney for 2 days, suffering for something which I don't want to mention here, because Honorable Guevara has promised to help. No, not a journalist. And yet, without justice, there cannot be freedom. So I'm asking again, do we have justice, Mr. Speaker? The popular maxim, justice delayed is justice denied. Mr. Speaker, the case of Kamaremba is a case of justice delayed. It is. Mr. Speaker, he's a high-profile citizen. He's a high-profile... Does he have it? Does he have it?
Have you seen them?
How can he suffer for nothing if he has it? Mr. Speaker, he's a high-profile citizen. His matter, like they did for the Palo Conte case, they should expedite his trial. Justice delayed is justice denied. He's been in custody indefinitely. These are issues that must be addressed and dealt with ASAP. It's very important, even for the face and image of Sierra Leone. He's a very young man, he's suffering. We are all humans. It could be any one of us. It could be any one of us. It is a bailable offense. Mr. Speaker, the police and the security sector, somebody talked on Kush and now I will respond now. Yes. I did not want to say things when he's not here. Talk about Kush. Talk about what Pampas water. All of them, well, it's everywhere on the news. So, Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we have to treat this very seriously. As a nation, we have to treat it seriously. Mr. Speaker, few days ago on the news, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, few days ago, I don't know whether you saw it, on the news, the alleged truck that was arrested in Burkina Faso carrying cocaine from Sierra Leone. Cocaine had been a thing of the past. But that's what I'm saying, an alleged. But it's on the news, and it was carried by a reputable United States government media. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, this is not good for our image. We have to treat them seriously. Our youth, we are losing our youth to Kush. Where is Kush coming from? Who is selling Kush? We must be proactive. We have to take steps in nipping these things on the bud. During the previous administration, there was an issue with cocaine. All of us know what was done, the steps that were taken. Laws were changed, now they are robust, but we're still hearing about cocaine and not. Nothing is happening. Not well, you have to do your work. Then the police is not working. The police are not working. Mr. Speaker, this is serious. It is denting the image of our country. We spent a lot of time to clean that image, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable member from Kono, the leader who just walked in of the C4. Talked about the 1978 Constitution. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, look very active.
Mr. Speaker.
Look very active. Mr. Speaker, it's how it's in government.
Go back to your seat. Go back to your seat.
Don't make any one more statement.
Go back to your seat.
Any more statement.
I will not allow you to.
He has pleaded, he has begged. Any more statements, you go back.
No, your chair leaders have to be dispersed.
Any more statements, you go back to your seat. Mr. Chairman of Internal Affairs, you have a lot of work to do with the police. You have a lot of work to do. Mr. Speaker, he referred us to the 1978 Constitution. And he said that it was just... Mr. Speaker, he's gone now, he's gone.
Well, the seat has been taken by the person. And that's not his seat.
No, you have sent him somewhere, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the $270 million investment for a terminal, we still believe it's not a wise investment. We still believe that.
Do you need all of that protection?
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in the interest of progress, ignore that one. It's not unique. So let's just be tolerant. It's not unique. It's not unique. Let's be tolerant. Ignore that one.
You know very well I've been more than tolerant.
Thank you, Mr.
You know very well. You know very well. I did not give you the mandate to speak.
Is that tolerance, Mr. Speaker?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the problem with Lunge Exit, the challenge is access. We travel a lot. We know what we suffer when we land. It is a fact. We should not shy away from the truth. This is not politics. All of us in this house who travel and have to catch the boat we complain. We should not shy away from the fact. This is not politics. This is not politics. When our colleagues in ECOWAS want to come, that you saw the turnout we had last year. It was not what we were expecting. Some don't want to cross water, and the road is long to come around, so some did not come.
Access is the word.
We will get more passengers if we had the Mama airport. Far more passengers. But it was politicized, and now we're having a terminal for 270 million when we would have had an airport for less than 400 million. An airport, but now a terminal. So, Mr. Speaker, as I said, we still believe that Mamama would have been a wiser investment. The president has secured a BOT for Lunge. Nothing will have stopped him to do BOT at Mamama. Nothing. It will still have been a Marabio project with the BOT. Nobody will have said nothing. The bridge we commenced at Magbele, he just commissioned it. Nothing will have stopped it. He would have recommissioned if he had wanted as well. Nobody would have stopped him. But these are things that we should not politicize. We should not politicize them. Like the Tomabon project, nobody will politicize it. Nobody. That is why when we face challenges, we will mention them. Because when Tomabon works, it works for all of us.
Remember, I'm just concerned. You've been speaking for well over an hour and a half.
Me, Mr. Speaker? No, your time is not correct, Mr. Speaker.
I know this is the...
Mr. Speaker, you see this graph that I have?
I know this is the...
Mr. Speaker, you see this graph? You see this graph? This graph is talking about petroleum and petroleum products. I'm not covered it. Mr. Speaker, you see this slide? This is an IMF report, Mr. Speaker.
I know we have a year to go to elections. So it is the campaign that you got...
No. Mr. Speaker, last year I spoke longer than today.
No, you've done more than an hour and a half.
Mr. Leader, out of the 1 hour and a half, I've just spoken for 15 minutes. The rest has been interruptions. The leader is going to spend 5 hours. Mr. Speaker,
if he's going to do 5, we might as well take an adjournment and come tomorrow for it.
No, he's going to do 5 hours. He's prepared. He has been studying for a week. I've been with him.
In the same study room?
No. He locks himself up somewhere. I will not tell you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are being...
That was me. Go to your seat.
Are you questioning us? No, he went to sign a press release. And the press release he went to sign, Mr. Speaker, has to do with national issues. It's very important.
What's wrong with that seat over there?
It's almost broken, Mr. Speaker. It's a senior man now. Mr. Leader, we have been told by our colleagues on that side, by some of them.
The only reason why I will allow him to continue to sit behind you...
Because he's your friend.
No. If he guarantees me, you're Sibo.
Guarantee. Guarantee them.
Isimol is not an issue of question, sir.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as I said, this is a graph. It shows the increase in price of petroleum products. Mr. Speaker, in Africa, we are fourth from top by an increase of 76% increase. The only country ahead of us in West Africa is Ghana. This is Shell International. It's only Ghana. But when you go further down, Mr. Speaker, they've listed 2 West African countries, Senegal and Burkina Faso. Their increase is 0. You know why? Because they are government subsidized. They feel for the people. They absorb the shock. That was what I was talking about this morning. They absorb the shock, Mr. Speaker. We don't want to absorb any shock. And it's like, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you listen to the musician, the reggae musician Buju Banton. I don't know whether you have listened to the reggae musician Buju Banton. Have you ever listened to him? No. I know the leader does, because we used to listen to him frequently. But I don't know whether you do, Buju Banton. You like the Dolly Partons and the rest. Old school. But whilst we were going through the Rubicon, we listened to Buju Banton. Buju Banton will tell you that the politician says the economy is getting better, but man still suffer. Buju Banton. That is what the SLPP is doing. On paper, the economy is doing fantastic. But Mr. Speaker, when you go out, the suffering is an increase. It's an increase. I remember a few years ago when a bag of rice was less than 200,000 leons, and my brother, the deputy leader, was in the opposition. He used to cry. Now he's defending 500,000+ leons. The ball has changed. Now he's crying, you see. This is scary. The people in Bo are seeing you, Mr. Leader. Mr. Speaker, you see this document, it's from the IMF. Because there has been a lot of talk on the economy. Fortunately, Medlands is here. This document is from the IMF. Mr. Speaker, for 10 years in governance, I can give you mine if you want. For 10 years in governance, Mr. Speaker, there was no point in time.
You see, he's also gathered his cheerleaders.
No, they've started a long time ago. You only seen them now. They've been there a long time ago. Mr. Speaker, for 10 years in governance, never did the IMF or the IDA, in the IDA, the World Bank, describe Sierra Leone as being a country under high debt distress. It's only under the SLPP in 2020. Only under the SLPP. And the minister was here, the now chief minister. He was genuine enough to accept it. After they received a country that was not under high risk, they converted it to a high risk. So they took it from austerity, called it fiscal discipline, and changed it to bankruptcy. That's all they did. Mr. Speaker, we are suffering. No. We are suffering, Mr. Speaker. Because I will tell you a story, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will tell you a story. And this is a good story. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday.
And that's the last point.
No, my last point. Mr. Speaker, my last point will come soon. Don't worry. Mr. Speaker, conversations most times. We help people, so let us don't stop. So, Mr. Speaker, as I said, maybe we'll be using the media, but there are many things to talk about. Many things, Mr. Speaker.
So why don't you say?
I will end up. I will have to end up with. I will have to end up with end part of paragraph 139. Mr. Speaker. Are you paragraph 139, Mr. Speaker, the end part? He says, the President said, as promised, no entrenched provision will be rushed through a referendum ahead of the forthcoming general and presidential elections. My government will take practical steps to address the non-entrenched clauses. Mr. Speaker, you know what we will support the President with? Is to to what he said when he was campaigning. That 1 year to an election, we should not be talking about election laws. Mr. Speaker, are we together? When the SLPP was campaigning in 2017, after the Constitutional Review had finished their work, all of us agreed, because we were a government, on Saturday, we sit and consult. We are not a pauper government. We rushed to a referendum ahead of the forthcoming general the presidency is to keep everything on hold to what he said when he was campaigning. Now again, we are 1 year to an election from general election. We should not be talking about election laws. I hope what the president means here, Mr. Speaker, are we together to make amendments when the people was campaigning? I hope not. I'll tell you what, 2017, the same civil society group they after the Constitutional Review had finished their work, the census, all of us agreed, because we were not credible. The same civil society we are not a pauper government. PRC. We rushed to the system that will allow parties was to choose members of parliament for electorate instead of doing the reverse. In democracy, to keep everything on hold to what he said when he was campaigning. Now again, represent them. Through the district block system is advancing. The district block system, it is not the people that will choose, because the parties will submit lists. Whether the people want or not, they will vote for their parties. So they might end up having members of parliament that are not their preference. Then the people will not have decided. Independence will be zero, contrary to the Constitution, which guarantees independent candidates. These are major issues we must discuss as a nation and not as a party or as a section. There must be a national discussion on this. Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you, I opposed PR before and I will continue to oppose PR. This is not my first time. Because I was a critic of PR in 2002. Again, we had MPs who did not feel obligated to their constituents. They were just dealing with their parties, because the Secretary General will just sit at the party office and prepare a list and send it to NEC. Whether the people want you or not, it is their list. And when they go, they vote for the party. It is very, very dangerous. But beyond that, Mr. Speaker, as I said, it's a national conversation. I want to avert your mind to the Constitution, Section 108. This document has been referred to as an entrenched document under Section 108. I want you to avert your mind. But beyond that also, Mr. Speaker, even history will tell you the last amendment that was done in this House, in this Constitution, was for the election of the Speaker, fortunately, which brought you to this House. It was a consensus vote. Never has there been an amendment to this Constitution where there has been one dissenting voice, not even 2/3. Because, okay, sorry, this is... This Constitution was tested. This Constitution... Mr. Speaker, I don't remember from Lumley, is disturbing me. This Constitution has been tested. We know it is not a perfect document. That is why people are calling for constitutional amendments. But keeping the white paper till the last year before election is tantamount to what happened in 2017. As I said, never at any point in time has this document been amended in this House, including the last amendment for the elections of Speaker, when it has not been a consensus vote. Never. And I know nowhere in the world, Mr. Speaker, except I've been told, where you amend a constitution with a simple majority. Nowhere in the world. Not in the UK, not even in Ghana next door, where you amend a constitutional provision. A constitutional provision. Constitution, I'm talking about the book. Any clause. Yes. Generally, the Constitution, any clause in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution makes provision for 2 scenarios. The first scenario are areas where you amend, but you don't need a referendum. Section 108 is very clear. But you need 2/3. But it goes down to stated specific chapters and sections where even with the 2/3 by this House, you still need to go further for a referendum. Yes, 108. So that is why in these issues, we must get a national conversation. We must get a national...
Mr. Speaker.
I'm debating the President's speech.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make correction. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable from Western area was in this Parliament when we amended Section 79 and 80 of the Constitution, and we changed the position of the Speaker and not of the Deputy Speaker, not using 2/3.
Who?
Yes.
It was the consensus.
No. We voted.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you. Mr. Speaker.
We voted in this Parliament.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You are correct. That is it.
And with
Mr.
a simple
Speaker,
majority, it was amended.
He is correct.
We voted and with a simple majority, it was amended. Yes.
No.
No, yes.
Mr. Speaker, we voted with a consensus voice. The whole House agreed. The only division we had was for the election of the Speaker, when the Honorable SBB Doumbia secured 100 votes. He secured 100 votes out of 112. And Dr. Boubacar Jabi, who was presented on... That's what I'm saying. The vote was by consensus. Because it's a fact. That is it. It was a consensus. Mr. Speaker?
Is the word consensus there in 108?
No. What I'm saying, no, I'm not talking about consensus. What I'm saying is, let me bring you back. I'm not saying we need a consensus.
What you're saying is that you need it by consensus.
So everybody voted in favor. That is my point. Everybody voted in favor. Everybody voted in favor. The vote. There were no dissenting voices. Everybody voted in favor of the amendment.
I'm afraid, read the Constitution again.
I have read it, that's why I'm making this submission, Mr. Speaker. Votes were called for, and everybody voted in favor of the amendment.
As a constitutional expert, I will not endorse that interpretation. It says 2/3.
That's what I'm saying, I agree with you.
That immediately calls for a vote.
That is what I said. Mr. Speaker, the votes were called, and everybody voted in favor. That is the point I'm making. I have no dissenting voice. All of us present voted. So what I'm saying is, we had more than 2/3.
You change your...
No, Mr. Speaker. I said we had the consensus of the House, and everybody voted in favor. We had a consensus. We sat, that's why I said...
Exactly.
That's why I said...
Exactly.
How can... It's ironic. Play the tape.
Prepare yourselves. Under my watch.
Yes.
Under my watch.
Yes.
You attempt a constitutional amendment that has to be voted.
Definitely, Mr. Speaker. Definitely. We are prepared.
I will not accept consensus.
Mr. Speaker, you will not accept consensus. Then you will also not get 2/3. So, that is why I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, when you touch this Constitution, Mr. Speaker, so I'm saying when you touch this Constitution, it's better you do wider consultations, lobbying and other things before you come to the floor.
And you vote.
That is it, yes. We voted, Mr. Speaker. That is it, we voted. Check your answers. We voted.
And with that,
Mr. Speaker,
one thing that gives me the greatest comfort as I sit here is the assurance I've received from your Honorable Secretary General who combines
Mr. Deputy Leader,
us.
you are misinforming the House.
For Lunge, that whether it is PR or not,
Order, Mani?
your symbol is guaranteed. So don't be afraid of the PR.
No. Mr. Speaker, we are not afraid of PR. Mr. Speaker, what we are saying, we want the people to decide their representatives. In PR system, you cannot decide who represents you. So we will not support that system. We tested it and failed.
Fine,
in 1996 and in 2002.
You are not afraid of the PR.
No.
You gave me the distinct impression when you first touched on it.
No, I'm not.
And you were afraid.
No, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm a senior man in my party. So I will not be afraid. I am not mad at Levy.
We are going to do band delimitation after the census season.
The incredible data. Incredible data. Mr. Speaker, I have been asked again. Mr. Speaker, I have been asked again to go back to what the President said. By that statement coming from the Deputy Leader. Because we said it, they denied it, and now he has said it. That the essence of the census had nothing to do with development, but for election purposes. I'll read what the President said. He has made it clear. No, he has made it very clear. Mr. Speaker.
We are debating the President's statement.
So that's what I want to come back. I mentioned it.
No. Ignore what he has said.
Okay, but let me just remind this House. I will read again, Mr. Speaker.
He's putting a gloss on the President's statement, and that's not permissible.
I agree, sir. So let me just read again paragraph 7. With the conduct of the first ever digital national census, the 2021 midterm population and housing census, which I have killed. So my government will henceforth, let me finish.
With that,
my government will henceforth base national development planning. Because that is what we were told. Now we have been told that it's for election purposes.
Ignore that. Read what is in the statement.
Breaking news. We are not.
So with that?
No. Mr. Speaker.
I'm worried about your health.
Me? Mr. Speaker, I am perhaps one of the healthiest in this House. I have a clean medical bill, I know that. I showed it to you.
I thought you were coming with me.
Sir.
So it means you've exhausted your...
I have so many points, but some of them for national purposes, I am advising myself.
Yes.
Because I am a responsible member of Parliament.
Very good. And
Mr. Speaker,
finality to this debate.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, before I sit, my call on you and us, the leaders in this House, to ensure that all outstanding human rights issues raised from 2018 to now be looked into and addressed, including but not limited to the Makeni-Pademba Road and the recent incident I mentioned. Well, I don't know, in 2018, okay, yes, too. But the elections fraud in Ward what? It's a human rights issue. Where they change figures in Ward 156. It's a human rights issue. They deprive the actual winner by changing figures in NEC. And up to date, as I speak, NEC is afraid to gazette the result because they know the day they gazette it, it will be petitioned. It's a human rights issue. He received the symbol, campaigned, contested and won the elections, and all of a sudden, they changed the figure publicly. We hope NEC will not do that in 2023. Our eyes are wide open, and we will resist any attempt legitimately. We will legitimately resist any attempt to defraud the people of this country. The elections must be free, fair, and credible. We will be robust in protecting our votes. No, level 3 is on already. Level 4 is taking over State House after the elections.
And with that, I heard your last statement very, very clearly.
You heard it very clearly.
I'm waiting to hear what the response is going to be.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, there are many things I want to talk about, but I still...
Yes?
I hope you are taking note on the things I called for your intervention, including calling MDS to take us through this statement. Some of them are here, some are not here. But they have to tell us because they have been running the economy for 1 year. It is their responsibility to take us through, Mr. Speaker. On that note, considering the time the President took and the fact that the education system is still working, we are calling for more advancement. I will say thank you to him and expect that by the time he leaves office in 2023, he will leave us in a better state than we are today, so that the work we will have will not be as enormous as it is today. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for his contribution to the debate. Now, before I call on the very last
Mr. Speaker, I need to make a few clarifications. Why? Few clarifications.
Take your seat.
I need to make a few clarifications, Mr. Speaker.
Take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, you had a continuous referral of the leader to me. I need to.
Before I call on...
I'm very comfortable with 32.8 and 9. I'm very comfortable with 32.9. So I'm very comfortable with it. Mr. Speaker.
I'm waiting for you to take your seat.
Yeah, this is a clarification. Mr. Speaker.
I'm waiting for you to take your seat. Before I call on my next speaker, I need to brace myself for what I can anticipate is going to happen. If you took 2.5 hours, yes, I have to brace myself. I have to brace myself properly for what is ahead of me. So I will stand the House down for another 10 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, standing the House down will mean asking the APC members to go.
Thank you.
Honorable members, take your seats, please. The leader of government business, to whom I now give the floor, has whispered in my ear that he is not going to speak as long as the leader of the opposition did. So I'm full of expectations. Over to you, leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues,
By the clock is 7:30.
I thank you all for your numerous contributions towards the debate. Thank you, His Excellency, the President of this Republic, for the challenge, for the governance of this nation. It's a clearly stated outline, giving us a general governance overlook of his administration for the past 4 years. Mr. Speaker, in my opening statement, of course, I have responsibility to talk to the nation through this medium today, to lay a clear case for His Excellency the President, not bringing things that are not realistic, but presenting a real picture. As he said, facts are secret. Present these issues for national cohesion, present the issues so that they can see the trajectory we are taking as a government. I will start from the same paragraph the leader of the opposition cited, and I will attempt to read them. It is my great honor to lead this nation in these challenging times, but I am here today not to dwell on these challenges. I want to just show how far we have come and how resilient we have been, to show my government's continued commitment to political stability and economic prosperity in spite of the times we are living in, to show our investment in education, future generations, building robust health care systems, prioritizing food security, empowering women and youth, protecting and promoting rights and access to justice, addressing poverty and unemployment, governing justly and accountability, protecting our environment, mitigating public safety risks, opening up the investment ecosystem, and underwriting purposeful infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the same man we are talking about today, as young as he was in the 20s, early 20s, laid his life with his colleague to ensure there is pure democracy, because they laid their life to save this nation because of reckless and maladministration of the past APC regime. The same man who has given us the platform today to criticize, to let the nation hear our voices. And he called for Bintumani too. He said, I need Bintumani too to hear from the people again. And they said, we want democracy before peace. And that's what exactly he did. First in the sub-region. First in the sub-region of the sub-Saharan Africa. A military man transforming the nation to a democratic state, with all the privileges around the office of the presidency as head of state. And he said, I am going to allow democracy to come in. What an exemplary character. A person who described as the father of democracy of Sierra Leone. Today we are proud of him, giving you the platform, saying all good things and bad things about him, because he's open-minded. He wants to see a nation where everybody has equal rights and justice. That he has stated. The previous administration of the then APC, from Momo up to the ex-vice president Roma, the common description you can give to them: nepotism, tribalism, regionalism, corruption, despotic regimes. The only one we added, and I'm still looking for you, Mr. Speaker, we came from Cambridge, to add to the dictionary of the English people, the Bongosurolism.
I was born in the APC regime, but we suffered maladministration. Today we are very proud of President Duke. Free education, voice of the people, the voice of the voiceless, gender parity, women's empowerment, all of these jargons we are hearing today. What a generous man, and a forgiving person, and a leader born with wisdom and understanding. The man who knows how to lead his people, listen to his people. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Thank you, President. Thank you very much. God bless you. Today, we are so happy. We are very, very happy. Today, people are talking about the economy. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, it's good for all of us to talk about the economy. We are not making stories. We are going to lay the facts so people can understand. We want to see what we have at hand and project for the future, for the good of this nation. And when this whole system started, I had my colleagues from the other side talking about the COVID-19. We want to make story. We are not making story. We don't make pretense. We are not crying babies. We take the facts and we try to solve the problems. In the 2020 budget, under the macro and budget performance, in 2020 rather, when the economists, people from Ministry of Finance and others, they projected that there is going to be a contraction of the economy, 3.1%. 3.1%. Check the budget statement at that time. What the president did, he said, this is not time for us for denial. This time for us to face reality. This time for us, how do we solve the problems? He saw it coming. Today you are saying, we are crying like babies, we want to give excuses. We are not giving excuses. We are talking about real times, real happenings. And we make projections. And what he did to solve the problem of economy, he brought in what we call the QAP. I have lamented about QAP at the EU Parliament. And I was applauded for doing that. Because we saw this coming and we gave reasons why we are bringing on the QAP, the Quick Action Economic Recovery Programs. In paragraph 11, which is well stated in the presidential speech, paragraph 10 rather, Mr. Speaker, it is very clear on that I am going to give bank facilities, special credit facilities through the central banks to stimulate this economy, to ensure that essential commodities, infrastructure, manufacturing, commodity are already in the market, and tax deferrals are also going to be done. So what he did, 500 billion using the QAP for a short time coming, for your CFP future that is talking about the downgrading of the economy in time to come due to the COVID and other issues beyond our control. Mr. Speaker, when this was rolled out, today we are seeing the essential commodities in the market. In other places, because they are not prepared, they are in denial. Even in America, they have shocks. Destruction of supply chain, shortage of food in the market. And the WTO Director General said, for the 20 to 50% of commodities will be in short supply in the market because production and supply chain were disrupted. That's what she stated. And especially when to talk about in Africa. So what we did, we introduced the QAP and the 500 billion was rolled out. All of us we have accepted that there was 5 billion, which all the statement I heard from you, that is available at the banking system to control the parameters that we face us. Because projection was made that 3.1% of the economy contracted. So we are not in denial at all. So the president came again, consistently with policies, said, I'm going to make tax deferrals, which he did. Mr. Speaker, what are we talking about? A president with a vision, focused president, and the effect of what we are seeing that commodities are available all of our essential commodities are in the market today. But let me tell you one thing, Mr. Speaker. It did not stop there at all, by any means. He also came down, but talking about how do we stimulate the economy? How do we stimulate the economy? But first, he started talking about the inflationary periods. And people are saying so many things. Everywhere in the world today, the America, the United Kingdom, they are talking about inflation. Inflation is everywhere. Strong economy. Everywhere there's no inflation. The issue of inflation, taking it to single digit, is not really in question for us. Because projections are giving us that after 2023, 2026, et al. Will have decline in the inflation rate. But what is paramount to us? In the fiscal policy, in the fiscal statements, the fiscal strategy statement given, and we have it in this house. Paragraph 45, which I read very soon, Mr. Speaker. In the projections, where you want to fight inflation? What are the parameters? There are variables associated with fighting inflation, whether it's going to be increased or decreased. And that's what was projected. And let me read, Mr. Speaker. I said, I'm going to make a case for my government, not talking about things from space. But the projections today, they are crying down our projections, our data. They said it's not correct. In fact, they are saying, the leader from the opposition said, in fact, this we need to cross-check. It's not reflective of what is happening. In my presentation here today, as I said, I'm going to present a clear record of my government, a clear record of President Bio, with documenting, with incontrovertible evidences, which I start, paragraph 45, and let me give you the heading. The Fiscal Strategy Statement, FSS, for 2019 to 2023, paragraph 45. Let me read, because he said in paragraph 14 in the presidential speech, he said, working towards single-digit inflation. Because it's aware that we are in the double digit. There's no problem with that. So what was the forecast within this same administration regime? Let me read. The decline in inflation will be driven mainly by stability in exchange, tight monetary policy, purported by good fiscal policy, as well as improvement in domestic food production. You see, I said the president was so focused and he introduced what we call the QUAP, because he saw it coming. Thinking about the document, this fiscal strategy statement given to us in this house from 2019 to 2023. And he said, continuing that line, Mr. Speaker, however, there are a downside risks, including possible continued increase in international fuel price, and depreciation of the exchange rate and consequent pass-through effect on domestic prices. We are not in denial. We are very concerned, very focused, very forthright in leading our people with the purpose of sincerity and trust. We can never be in denial. We are not going to fight with people. We have accepted that with projections and what have given contraction of the economy, inflation. And we have said, if you go to paragraph 47 of the same page, it's telling you that projections are given if all things remain constant, acceptable variables, that the variables are constant, you have production, you have export, etc., etc. There must be a fight to decrease the inflation rate. Today, that is what we have. And it's good for all of us to fight inflation and see the point we take to move on. After giving all of this analysis in fighting inflation, he said, but let me come. In the same statement, we need to stimulate the economy. What he did, in the same paragraph 11, he said, in agricultural produce, we have to move them from the rural area to urban centers so that economic activities can go on. So he made part payments for the regraveling of over 1,836 trunk roads to be rehabilitated in the bid to stimulate the economy. But he said, my colleagues on the other side, they have started the township roads. But what can I do? Because I want to stimulate the economy. There are 109 kilometer roads in township roads. He said, I'm going to make payments to complete township roads so that I can be able to stimulate the economy. It is very clear, because he has a vision. He is not a president that come and fake his people with promises. Fake promises that people are talking about. He saw it coming, and he made a projection over 2 or 3 years ago that this is the economy I inherited from the Elsa administration, but I have to solve the problem. Mr. Speaker, you know what is good? When you take up governance, the ability rests upon you. How do you solve them? That's why I told my colleagues in my opening statement that they have ruled us. I was born in the APC regime. They have ruled us for over decades or for decades. So everything they started, infrastructure we started, governance we started, this we started. So I told them, you started everything, and you started corruption. But you started corruption. But what we are going to do, we are going to sanitize the system. That is why we are not ashamed to talk about corruption. That's why I gave description. That gene is transferred from the Pachaka regime, who so rest in perfect peace. So the present administration of the ex-president, corruption, nepotism, tribalism, regionalism, bogosololism. That's true. Mr. Speaker, I read the last paragraph of paragraph 11. I said, in stimulating the economy, funds, third to last paragraph, funds we are disbursed to enhance electricity generation, transmission and distribution, and to expedite the restoration of electricity supply to the district headquarter towns and cities, thus stimulating economic activities. So he started looking at, one, how do we get the agricultural produce to urban areas for marketing, transactions, so people in the remote sector can get something in exchange. But what was difficulty he saw? That we had poor road networks. So he said, look, let us do the rehabilitation of trunk roads over 1,000 kilometers comfortably. Today they are going on. But they be in denial to say, no road construction is going on, trunk roads. But no, we took oaths. Every day we hear our prayers. They are with personal affections. Put away all personal affections. And I will not dwell deep into that. In the finality, your conscience, when you go to your bed, your conscience and God will judge you. For us, some of us, we are perfect Christians. The Catholic Christians, for that matter. We believe in what we do and what we say. So is President Bio. They talk and do government, whether you like it or not. It's a decent man. We have talked about the national microfinance. Don't politicize it. Don't politicize it, Mr. Speaker. I beg them. Allow your people to benefit from it. In paragraph 12, he is not saying, look at it, there is no party color, no passports, no names attached to it. But what I have reckoned with, and I'm satisfied, my colleagues from the other side from Kono, some of them from the other side, we have reckoned with that the national microfinance is working, commonly known as the Munafa program. It's working. So what we need to do, and I told the line with my colleagues on the other side, that we need to ask the bank governor to give us the regulation that was followed, to give us the microfinance to people. That is how we should be responsible government. I am going to support that, so we see the target beneficiary are met. Not for personal reasons, but because we have given the microfinance which got the Munafa. But Mr. Speaker, very interested. You know, we said it was mainly for the small and medium enterprises. Do you know the story, the beautiful story behind it? Over 5,828 is in paragraph 12. 28 small and medium enterprises. Small and medium enterprises. They have accessed the microfinance. But interesting enough, Mr. Speaker, what I'll tell you, 70% of the enterprises are owned by women, female. Are female owned. Are owned. But we don't want to know if they have to do party color, we have to do whatever. It's not. This nation must progress. We want to be a progressive nation. We don't bring policies and skew them. Salute for better. Mr. Speaker, we continue to digress, we continue to synthesize, we continue to talk about everything. Their passion, their innuendos cannot distract us. The trajectory is different. The new direction. That is what you have taken. And you benefit from Munafa. Don't deprive your people for cheap politics. Tell them, access it, go to the banks. That is the reason I challenge this house. The chairman of the finance committee, chairman of the committee, and other members. let us look into the disbursement of those funds. So I've acknowledged and I applaud you for reckoning with that one, that there is a national microfinance going on with the Munafa. And also, for even the 500 billion, the special credit facility go out. As I speak, we have at the central bank people in the agricultural sector and finding it very difficult to access the funds. Reasons we don't know. If you don't have the requisite requirements set out by the bank governor or the bank of the central bank, let us look into it, Mr. Speaker, so people can access it. It's not any secret that we are fighting inflation. We want to have the downward trend of the inflation. So that is what we are fighting for, the Munafa Fund. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, you know, it's a quite an interesting time. I was over there about 7 or 8 years ago. I was on that side. And I told, when they brought in because all this we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, it has to be with resource mobilization. It has to be resource mobilization. If you don't mobilize the resources appropriately, there will be consequences. So when they brought in the idea of GST, we are very interested in it. And Honorable Radioki, an economist, and he stood up and said, Mr. Minister, can we go to a committee room and have some discussion about this GST? And he continued in that direction. And the machines and all over, though we are having challenges, because we want to mobilize resources so that government programs can be fully implemented. So they are on it, and the machines are working today. So he mentioned it in the electronic association of machines. It's so clear, and we are so concerned about that. So because of that, our revenue, we keep on growing. That's why the projection you are seeing, that the steady pace at which we are going, the financial prudence, the fiscal discipline we are having now, will enhance us a better economy and a booming one at the end of the day. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I have heard people talking about wages and salaries It seems to me preposterous, Mr. Speaker. Taking the salaries and wages, saying the wages are just going up, What are the things that you prefer? Why the wages are going up? They did not explain. My colleague, Laimara is not around. Laimara is not around. But Mr. Speaker, it is very interesting to note that if you mean well for your people, if you want your people to progress and change their lives, there must be increase in wage bills. There must be increase in wage bills. And I stood on that day on Stand the Orders. That, Mr. Speaker, can our colleague explain to us why there is increase in the wage bill? He said, oh no, trying to make cheap political gains. You don't need to do that. We are honorable people. We need to provide reasons. You can even provide the reasons why do you need wage bill, and you criticize us. But you cannot just give a blanket statement, preposterous statement like that. Now let me give you the reason why you have high increase in wage bills. Let me go to the budget speech, paragraph 155, and I read that, Mr. Speaker. Paragraph 155. What we want to do Mr. Speaker, honorable members, what we want to do in the system, trying to ensure that there is proper sanitation within the salary structure, which is causing the high increase in wages. Let me tell you to the honorable colleagues, it has happened in the previous administration, and that's the reason we want to stop it. It's not much about the increment. It's about sanitizing, harmonizing the wage bill. Somebody in Parliament of the same rank like somebody in other MDA, Minister of Finance, NATCOM, they be at the same level, directors, senior directors. The one at Parliament will be getting 2 million, whilst the one at NATCOM or SPR will be getting 5 million. Why the disparity? Why the disparity? That is the reason we want to sanitize the wage bills. We have it in Parliament. But let me tell you now, why we have the increase in the wage bills, the things that we are doing. Let me read paragraph 55 from the budget, 2022 budget, read in the House. Said, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, The government weight bill for 2022 is projected at 3.9 trillion, 7.7% of GDP, compared to 3.75 trillion in 2021. This increase in the nominal wage, will reflect government's commitment to award a salary increment, a salary increase of 25% to all the security forces. Initially, somebody said, we don't care for the security people. And this one is very consistent with TACOS. And I will come to that. It's very consistent with TACOS in the statement given by the President in 2021 presidential speech. Let me conclude, Mr. Speaker. 25% to all the security forces over a 3-year period. Take note, over a 3-year period. That started 2021. Employees of tertiary education institutions, including universities, polytechnics and government institutions, technical institutions, will also receive a further pay rise of 25%. We're not justifying why there's an increment in the wage bill. The increase in the wage bill will also cover the recruitment of 1,200 teachers, 1,200 teachers, 1,000 health workers, 1,000 health workers, 1,000 police officers. They say we don't care for our service personnel. 200 correctional officers and 85 firefighters, as well as 500 academic and administrative staff for tertiary educational institutions, especially the newly established universities. Mr. Speaker, it's quite an interesting one. And for me, for us to talk about this, not mentioning our increase in the wage bill. Why do we have high increase in the wage bills? Because we want to change the conditions of people we lead. We want to ensure that there is slight changing throughout our administration, making sure that we give them what they deserve, not what people think they will just get. But at the end of the day, we transform their lives into a positive one. So what do we do? What was in 2021? What do we have in 2021 presidential speech? As I said in my opening statement, Mr. Speaker, I am giving all of this comparison to tell our colleagues on the other side and all members in the House that we have consistency in policy drive. We have consistency in policy drive. In 2021, the President did say, I am going to change the condition of service of our personnel, security personnel, which we call the TACOS. Let me refer to you to the presidential speech 2021. Paragraph 93, under the rubric Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces. At the strategic level, my government is developing a defense policy framework that commits the RSLA to both operating effectively and supporting national development. My government is constructing accommodation facilities, rolling out a 25% salary increment over 3 years. We have lamented on that in the budget. So what he did, in talking about it as a policy statement, he has just actualized it in the financial year budget 2022. So we are very consistent and very focused in full policy drives. Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, honorable members. We are talking about debt service. This is a very interesting one. I want you to pay attention. I have talked about the consistency policy drive. I have talked about the wage bills. And for us to meet our own responsibility as government, I will still insist that we need to have huge revenue mobilization. So we put in place all of the structures. So if you see we have challenges with the economy, because exports was so challenging, I will come to that very soon after talking about the debt crisis. Mr. Speaker, we said in paragraph 22 under the levy 4, the NRA collection and challenge we have with the revenue. So what is going to happen now in the debt management? We said we are going to service our debt. And it's in the budget speech. And I read, we are not ashamed. And I will give the reason why we are at this point. I'll give the reason why we are at this point. We said the debt service payment, paragraph 156. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, total interest payments are projected at 1.44 trillion, 2.8% of GDP for 2022. Of this interest payment on domestic debt will amount to 1.26 trillion, and interest on foreign debt 178.7 billion. You know, it is sad for all of us. It is sad. But as I said it earlier, in taking responsibility as a government, when you take up power or administration, you assume the liabilities of your previous administration, whether it's good or bad, as we inherited bad administrations. John Obono Jemjami, the erstwhile finance minister of the Republic of Sierra Leone, under late President Kaba, in his signing over note, quote me and go to Ministry of Finance and start. Debt write-off, 100% of our commercial debt, $750 million. Debt write-off, our commercial debt, write-off, $750 million was completely wiped off, 100% was write-off. Coming down to the multilateral debt of $1.6 billion. The debt that we inherited from Patrick Stevens to J.S. Momo, the maladministration, the Bogosianis in government. 1.5 billion was wiped out. 1.5 billion of our multilateral debt was wiped out. Right out. Completely. Coming down to the IMF now. What is on us due to good fiscal policy, good fiscal prudence, and also fiscal management? It answers from the IMF. 542 billion as an interest reserve at the central bank. That was handed over to the SY administration. It's on record. Mr. Speaker, when they took up, they had a comfortable platform to ride on. You know what they did? As I said, for the NRA machines, when they introduced the GST, they refused to come with a cash register machine. For proper collections, what they did, covertly, is to create wealth for themselves. So they brought in the GST without giving it proper mechanism in place. We have done it now. Now, when they took over, from the 542 billion in the reserve as interest from IMF, they now brought in the income electric projects. Income electric. Where we ended? We ended at the ACC. And Chericoco ran away because they humiliated, molested, chased him at his home. Every moment, every second. I was here. I thought it's not the right thing to do. He resigned. I said, we inherited so many bad things from them, and we will use our fiscal policies, decent ones, to cleanse the system. And they inherit corruption from them. We'll wipe out corruption. Mr. Speaker, the less we talk about debt management, the better. Let me talk about the domestic and the foreign debt. Let them go. I refer you to Budget at a Glance. Go to the Ministry of Finance website, Budget at a Glance. You know, the interesting thing, based on the projection I have given you in paragraph 45, in paragraph 47, the projections. I'm talking about if all things remain constant. What we are pushing now, how do we manage our debt? How are we doing debt service payment? Now, based on the policies, if you look at the trajectory, the domestic debt is increasing from 27% to 22%. The domestic debt is decreasing. While the foreign debt, what we call the external debt, we still on increase because we are servicing them. What this gives us, that charity begins at home. We are trying to sanitize the internal mechanisms. How do we take care of our domestic debt? So if you see the projection, it's going downwards, while we still maintain the increase in the external debt. That you can check the Budget at Glance at the website. That is fact. We are not ashamed to say it. But let me say, if you read carefully, if you go through the indicators that we are getting now, after 2023, we are trending toward the single-digit inflation. Based on all of the policies that we have put in place, we will succeed, and by the grace of God, not by my own power, we will succeed in bringing this country to a better economy. As I said, I want to make my government credible. We set a new direction, taking a new trajectory under our administration. It's not about rhetoric, but facts. Our facts are sacred. We are not manufacturing figures. If you say what I'm saying, you want to criticize, I challenge, I give references. That's why for every point I make, I also refer to. For every statement I'm giving here, there's a reference point. Education. 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 Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, one of the great leaders in the world, may he so rest in peace, of blessed memory, Mandela. When they were fighting apartheid, he said, the only way we can fight apartheid is by education. He said, the only way we can fight apartheid is education.